and Chief Editor of Masriyat. Good morning, Ms. Nafisa.
Good morning.
And we'll start our press review for today from Al Ahram. Preserve the unity of the Egyptians. As Sisi says, the state shall interfere to regulate the prices by the end of this month. Our path is clear, and I'm surprised from those who disagree about January 25th and June 30th. The positive movement in the foreign policy returned Egypt to its previous status on both the regional and international levels. And we are patient to conspire against us, and thanks to God's protection, no one can harm Egypt. I say to those who participated in the first phase of the parliamentary elections, thank you. And to those who did not participate, I say, please go participate and choose. What the people achieved in 17 months is a dream which needed 17 years to come true, and we are ready to welcome international investments, and we shall succeed even more than the previous 17 months. We have many challenges ahead, and I shall not sell delusions to the people or deceive them. And still with the same issue, which made one of the main banners in El Masri El-Yom, the President in his speech of the challenge and honesty. We protect the state and not the system. And the right of the marcher operation in Sinai shall continue. We interfere to reduce the prices of the basic commodities and providing the needed amounts of gas for the factories by the end of November. What happened in Alexandria is the result of so many years of negligence. I told Russian President Putin that Egypt welcomes any cooperation in the investigations of the plane crash. There is no problem to provide the money needed for the small and medium enterprises, and no one in Egypt is special, for only Egypt is special. The state and the army shall provide the basic commodities at reasonable prices, and I wish them to take the low-income bracket into consideration, and those who have any stored goods shall start selling them in the market quickly. And still with the same issue which made the main banner, and we read from El Sabagh. The speech of raising the morale, 55 minutes of challenge in the sectors of security, electricity, investment and gas, and facing the misleading media and announcing the control on terrorism in Sinai. The President in his speech reducing the prices by the end of the month. We solved the problem of electricity and gas in a year and a half, misleading by the media threats the process of development, a new city for manufacturing, furniture, etc. And the state shall not approach the money of the people and is committed to the investors. We shall not sell delusions to the people, and I know how the people live. Ms. Nafesa El Sabagh will be back to comment about the President's speech and the latest developments on the plane, but first we'll take this report by Ines Hegesi.
A Russian airliner that crashed in Egypt broke up in the air. A Russian investigator made the announcement on Sunday as the bodies of many of the 224 people killed on board were flown home. For his part, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi urged patience to determine the cause of Saturday's crash. Viktor Soroshenko, a senior official with Russia's Interstate Aviation Committee, quoted by the Russian news agency RIA from Cairo, said that the disintegration happened in the air and that the fragments are divided over a large area. Soroshenko, who is heading an international panel of experts, added that it was too early to draw conclusions about what caused the flight from the Red Sea holiday resort of Sharm el-Sheikh to St. Petersburg to crash. Airport officials said late on Sunday that a Russian plane carrying 162 bodies of those landed in St. Petersburg. Investigators have recovered the black box flight recorders of the Airbus, which crashed, killing all those on board, and the Egyptian government said its contents were being analyzed. Meanwhile, officers involved in the search efforts said that rescue crews had recovered 168 bodies so far. This as army helicopters hovered above the site as the search for more bodies continued.
Welcome back, our dear viewers. Now we continue our discussion with Ms. Nafesa El Sabagh about the speech by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi yesterday. What were the most important points tackled by the President in his speech yesterday from your point of view?
First, I would like to comment on the report. Yeah. Condolences to all the victims and the families of the victims of the plane. Actually, the President hinted to this point in his speech yesterday as well. And I think he has an important point regarding this. He asked basically media to wait for
the results of the
investigation. And actually this is very true, because so many questions are there. It's really strange circumstances that happened in which the crash happened. And there are so many good questions, but actually there are dozens of answers that's not logic and not scientific, or if we can say. So it's better in such a very big situation and very bad disaster to go for credible sources and well-known sources to talk about what they consider maybe. So this is important. Another thing about the speech yesterday is that actually it may be one of the first time that most of the speech is hinting to developmental problems or developmental stages and the real conditions for the day-to-day for the people in the day-to-day, which means that it's the upcoming focus presidency during the coming months, which is very important because we all understand how the economic situation is getting bad, and the people actually are really tired of it. So taking care of it without saying that we are the best ever is very important. Declaring that we have achieved the things, yes, we have achieved, of course. If we did not achieve, people would not have kept quiet, actually, despite the very bad economic situation. So achieving is something important. It's declared. Maybe it's not very clear, actually, because no credible information, detailed information about different projects are being conveyed to people through media. But still, the key issue that should be really fulfilled very soon is marketing interference from the state, some way, the interference in the markets from the state, to adopt the prices in the process so that it's not very high for the normal Egyptian citizens.
Yes, of course.
So,
and it was mentioned.
It's a promise that by November it would be felt by the people. I hope it can really be that soon, because it will affect most of the people.
Of course. What other points were important from your point of view in the President's speech?
Another point actually is.
What about the Parliament and how he invited the people and thanked the people who did participate, and invited the others to go and participate in the second phase of the parliamentary elections?
Actually, the President here is setting a good example. I wish that all media people could go after. It's not about, when the turnout was not that high as it was the aimed for or they expected. So many anchors and presenters, TV presenters, went out on the screens, telling people that you are lazy and you are betraying your country. It's not your duty to do this to people, to the people actually. It's the people's choice. And all you can do is
just to encourage or give information.
Encourage them and ask them, please go and participate. So you should
give
not do
informative details about the candidates or whatever.
the candidate and the process itself.
Yes.
This time it's very different than any other elections we had, because we had the lists and the individual
Yes.
seats, and different numbers of individual seats in different constituencies. So the media did not tell people how many people to choose in different constituencies and what's different regarding the procedures than the previous elections. And now you are just feeling angry at the people. This is logical. This is
Indeed.
beyond anything.
And back to El Ahram, and from page 3 we read, analyzing the black boxes data recorders of the doomed Russian flight, retrieving 179 and continuing the search operations for the rest of the victims, and a plane carrying the remains of scores of the people killed when a Russian airliner crashed in Sinai landed in St. Petersburg. The plane, the first to bring back the bodies of those who died when Russian airline flight 9268 crashed in Sinai Peninsula, arrived in Pulkovo airport of the country's second largest city at 3 GMT. And still with the same issue from Masri Ilyom. A surprise, the Russian plane had an accident in Cairo in the year 2001. Witnesses say the plane burned before it fell, and the forensics say we received 171 corpses. An Egyptian-Russian-French committee starts analyzing the black boxes data recorders, and the CC says we welcome Moscow's cooperation. Still with the same issue about the Russian plane, from Al-Yawm Al-Sabagh. Upon the order of the public prosecution, Sinai is sealed for investigations of the Russian plane crash, and 4 European and international parties participate in the investigations, and the Third Army retrieves 175 corpses from the site of the wreckage. And to shed more light about the plane crash, the Russian plane crash which took place in Sinai, the following report will tell us.
Tourists and Egyptians joined together in prayer at the Coptic Orthodox Cathedral of the Heavens in Sharm el-Sheikh on Sunday. Worshippers remembered victims of the Russian passenger airliner, which crashed on Saturday in a remote part of Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, around 20 minutes after taking off from Sharm el-Sheikh, killing all 224 people on board. Sharm el-Sheikh is a popular destination for Russian tourists, with many coming for the warm weather, beaches and scuba diving. Meanwhile, flew at half-mast in Russia as the country mourned the air disaster. The flight had been bringing holiday makers back to St. Petersburg, Russia's second largest city, when it disappeared off radar screens while over the Sinai Peninsula. At nightfall, several thousand people gathered in a circle in St. Petersburg Palace Square, in front of the Hermitage Museum, where they observed a minute's silence and released doves and balloons to the sky. Flags were at half-mast on the Parliament building in the Kremlin and on other official buildings in honor of the victims, most of whom were from St. Petersburg and its surrounding region. Meanwhile, authorities set up a crisis center at a hotel airport where relatives of the victims were invited to provide DNA samples. Russia's news agency interrupted coverage with moments of silence and flashed photos of smiling crash victims, apparently taken on their holiday and posted on social networks. The plane also had 4 Ukrainians and 1 Belarusian national on board.
Welcome back. Of course, the developments of the plane are making headlines in the newspapers. Today, a plane carrying the remains of the bodies of the people who lost lives in this very tragic plane crash were flown to Russia for burial, of course, and it's a very sad accident. And of course, I feel that all the people here in Egypt are deeply saddened by this incident and crash.
It is because it's very big, the numbers are very high, and it's not normal to have such very
But
bad
usually in plane
incidents for
crashes,
foreigners.
unfortunately,
In Egypt, we did not witness
Yes.
that
Yes.
this many times. And, you know, so I think we do not remember any accident happened as far as we remember. So this is why it's really, it feels very bitter
it is.
for the people. And what makes it more bitter is that it's for Russians, actually, the most people who are the basic component for the Egyptian tourism right now. So people are, besides they are sad for the accident and for the victims and for the numbers, they are getting worried that this would affect their earning their living in a while. So this is why the effect on Egyptians is not normal, actually. It's higher than normal in this situation.
What about the people who jump? Many people did talk about the incident, they jumped to conclusions, but actually up till now the investigations were not completed, the black boxes were found, and many teams from many countries are participating in the analyzing of the black boxes of the incident and the investigations.
You know, it's very strange. The timing is strange. The place is strange.
Yes.
The nationality of the victims, you know, all these can
Raise question
marks.
marks.
So that's why people just, and normally many Egyptians just like to say,
To analyze the scene.
to analyze whatever based on no information.
Yes.
So this is what happened, and actually it's more dangerous than anything to jump to conclusion in such a very grave incident, because it would affect actually the tourism in Egypt. It might affect the Egyptian-Russian relation if such, you know,
Yes.
crazy conclusions
Okay.
have been jumped to. But actually, what's important is that everything is being investigated by Egyptian and Russian teams. For sure, Russia is not going to say that Egypt is very good while Egypt had
Yes, and others, of
anything
course,
to do
German
with-
and French, because
Exactly.
of the manufacturing countries of the plane itself, the Airbus.
So it would be very important to wait for the results, or at least media should not just wait, but go to a very basic expert people to talk about what's happening, to give real credible information about what's happening, instead of saying no one can say for sure what happened actually to this plane for now.
And back to Al-Ahram, we read from page 3. The House of Representatives receives the new members. The final names of the nominees of the second phase. The High Elections Committee announced the final list of the nominees in the second phase of the parliamentary elections. And the campaigning starts tomorrow. Still with the same issue, and from page 3, we read. The electronic voting threatens the annulment of the internal elections in the parliament. The committee that received the new members starts its work to issue membership cards and Nur party plans to embrace the state in the embarrass the state in the House of Representatives. And still with the same issue, and from El Sabagh, the road to the House of Representatives starts tomorrow with the statement of the financial status. 273 deputies in the first phase signed the statements and the applications, and not complying to the accurate recording is criminalized. Of course, preparations for the second phase of the parliamentary election will take place by the end of the month. Has started actually, and how do you see the second phase, and do you believe that we could learn from our mistakes in the second phase of the elections?
Actually, you cannot say that there are mistakes in the first phase. I cannot say this,
Yes.
because actually the state should have to, during the process itself, the elections and the poll days, it should secure them. It happened.
No, I mean to be more aware of the candidates, to know.
It's basically about what can be improved is about the media part.
Yes, maybe.
The people choice, we cannot just interfere in it. To me, actually, I'm waiting for the percentage of the voters in Manufaya. To me, it would be a very important sign on what situation in the future for the people's choices. So, but what's guaranteed now and what's for sure is a fact is that we have 273 members of the House of Representatives now, and they should be officially part of the people's representatives. I hope
Indeed.
we can see something
Hopefully.
some good, fruitful.
Hopefully, Ms. Nafesa El Sabagh, the journalist and chief editor of Masriyat, thank you very much
Yeah.
for being our guest for today, and have a lovely morning. And with that, our dear viewers, we come to the end of our press review for today. Now we'll go to a short break, and after that, we'll be back to resume the segments of the breakfast show, so stay tuned.